When one reflects on the legacies of human innovation, several inventions come to mind: the wheel, electricity, telephone, and many others, along with the names of their masterminds that have shaped the course of history. Yet, nestled within the folds of human ingenuity lies a marvel no less impactful than any other: the ammonia synthesis process, first proposed in 1909 by German Jewish chemist Fritz Haber. Although often overshadowed by its more celebrated counterparts, the Haber process has grown to be single-handedly responsible for providing food for half of the world, becoming directly related to the sustenance of human life and a growing industrial population. When numerous historical narratives are examined, one can truly understand how the Haber process, once a harbinger of destruction, became a worldwide lifesaver and liberator of hunger, forever changing the way we farm and transforming into one of the major turning points of the 20th century.
The genius behind the ammonia synthesis process, Fritz Haber, was born in Breslau, Germany in 1868. While his father, a merchant, wished for his son to take up work in the dye business, Haber would ultimately pursue his interest in science, acquiring his PhD in chemistry in 1891. 4 years later, Haber accepted an offer for an assistantship at the University of Karlsruhe by the professor of chemical technology Hans Bundt, where he would ultimately dedicate himself to chemistry and remain until 1911. In the early 20th century, Haber would soon invest great effort into solving an emerging issue: a heightened demand for ammonia, NH3. Global dependence on ammonia consisted of both a need for nitric acid used in explosives and ammonium nitrate used in fertilizers. Popular ammonia-producing methods at the time, like the Frank-Caro process in 1895 and the Birkeland-Ede process in 1903, were simply too high in energy consumption and thus inefficient. Additionally, tropical island deposits containing ammonia were rapidly depleting, and countries that had previously extracted from these reservoirs feared famine, as intense industrialization gave birth to a larger population. In order to meet the growing demands for food supply, the dilemma surrounding ammonia acquisition for fertilizer was a top priority to address, especially for Haber, who sought to keep his own country from certain decline. During his research, the abundance of the Earth's nitrogen was brought to Haber's attention. Since ammonia is mostly nitrogen, Haber mused whether nitrogen in the air could be synthesized into ammonia, as the atmosphere is 78% nitrogen by concentration. However, up until this point, there was no discovered mechanism that would facilitate such a reaction. Haber's extensive background in chemistry would strongly support his ability to later make the historical breakthrough in the creation of ammonia from nitrogen.
The main obstacle behind inventing such a process was the extreme conditions at both high pressure and temperature required to facilitate the creation of ammonia from nitrogen. The amount of experimentation required to perfect such a mechanism involved years of hard work and dedication, but Haber's perseverance would ultimately lead him to an answer, a reaction known today as the Haber process. In March of 1909, Haber would propose this new reaction to his colleagues at Karlsruhe, one that would finally overcome the challenge of ammonia synthesis that stumped past chemists. After this new process was successfully demonstrated in Haber's laboratory, prominent German company BASF would purchase and patent it, tasking chemist Karl Bosch to upgrade the process to industrial scale. Working together with the German government, BASF would use Haber's formula to produce large quantities of ammonia in return for support on further development. The newly refined large-scale process would be first used to manufacture ammonia in the Opal plant of Germany in 1913, creating a supply more abundant than any previous process, with output reaching 30 metric tons a day. The significance of the Haber process would be amplified upon Germany's entry into World War I. The ability to consistently produce ammonia would prove immense use for both the hefty demand for consumable rations and Germany's explosive weaponry. In response to his involvement in Germany's arms program, Haber famously stated, "In peacetime the scientist belongs to humanity, in wartime to his fatherland," a controversial justification for the destruction caused by nitrate explosives. From 1914 to 1919, Great Britain would enforce a naval blockade on Germany, preventing supply aids from entering, and further declaration of the North Sea as a war zone would leave Germany unable to access any of its nitrate deposits. The ability to synthesize ammonia proved to be a major contributor as to how Germany was able to fight for an extended period of time despite cutoffs from supply routes up until its final days of defeat. In fact, Haber's discovery was so influential that he was awarded the Nobel Prize in Chemistry in 1918. In his speech given to an audience of renowned individuals, Haber would express his concern for the global inability to meet production needs of ammonia and elaborate on the extent to which his invention would help alleviate food shortages. The need for opening up new sources of nitrogen became clearly apparent at the turn of the century. By comparing the fast-rising requirements with the calculated extent of these deposits, it became clear that towards the middle of the present century, a major emergency would be unavoidable, unless the chemistry found a way out.
Haber's prized possession would soon be introduced globally following Germany's loss of World War I, when the Haber process would fall into the hands of the Allied powers. Yet still, being the first to implement the process gave Germany a heightened advantage above others. By 1924, Germany was producing ammonia at a staggering 29 times higher capacity when compared to that of France, who was still in the early stages of adopting the Haber process. The instant effects of the Haber process were clear. Obtaining ammonia was no longer an obstacle for the global industry. Despite this, however, the artificial synthesis of ammonia was as controversial as it was successful due to its damage to the environment. For starters, it greatly contributed to biodiversity loss and eutrophication, the overgrowth of algae above water that deprives aquatic ecosystems of oxygen and sunlight. Not only this, the process increased CO2 emissions as a result of its high pressure and temperature, responsible for up to 1% of all artificial releases. On top of all else, due to the ammonia fertilizer oversaturating soil with nutrients, fertilizer runoff pollution was a daunting effect of ammonia synthesis, polluting water and threatening the longevity of many species. From its first use to this very day, the Haber process would steal the lives of countless innocents through its use in explosive technology. Ammonium nitrate-based weaponry statistically prolonged the First World War and the suffering it brought by at least 18 months, exactly what Haber had intended to prevent. In addition, roughly 60% of the 40 million casualties from the First World War were a direct result of artillery shell explosions, tracing back to ammonia produced by none other than the Haber process. Thus, Haber's quote, "bread from air" discovery would also come with devastating effects during a period of global conflict. The legacy of the Haber process would invariably continue into the current age. Today, the Haber process has established itself as the main producer of synthetic ammonia. Global capacity of ammonia has reached nearly 239 million metric tons annually, with a projection of 289 million by the year 2026. Without this innovation, the world population would have been speculated to be reduced to just 3.5 to 4 billion people. Thus, the nickname detonator of the population explosion would be attributed to this invaluable discovery. Unfortunately, the detriments of the Haber process would again surface in the modern day. Fertilizer-based explosives like urea nitrate and ammonium nitrate fuel oil have been used in numerous acts of global terrorism, such as the World Trade Center bombing of 1993 and the 1995 Oklahoma City bombing. Ultimately, the Haber process's varied influences earned it the nature of a double-edged sword, resulting in both the loss of countless lives yet the salvation of millions others, engraving it as a renowned breakthrough in scientific development, as well as a considerable turning point in human history.
Though an uncommon name within the realm of knowledge, the Haber process has undoubtedly made its mark as a turning point in history. The synthesis of ammonia through this scientific discovery stands as a lasting testament of humanity's ability to harness the power of chemistry for both creation and destruction. In the field of war and conflict, the Haber process opened up new forms of weaponry, brought forth the deaths of millions, and has contributed to an ever-growing list of environmental concerns. Yet, in the face of these challenges, the synthesis of ammonia through the Haber process has also revolutionized the production of food, nourishing billions around the world and alleviating hunger for future generations to come. The story of the Haber process and its tumultuous history honors both the enduring resilience and ingenuity of human spirit in the face of adversity.